roll call. Who's going to do that? Can you do George?
Present.
Kadeem? Robert?
Present.
Tom Keegan?
Here.
Manny Langella?
Present.
And the person we can never see, John Kides?
Here.
All right, and I'm here. Okay.
Smoking a
Are we
cigarette.
missing anybody? Barbara? No, that's it, right?
No, the other George.
Oh, George, yes, he said he wasn't coming, so, okay. All right. I'm trying to do, let's see, all right, approval of the May 13th minutes, the motion,
I'll make that motion. Or
second? No, we don't have to second that, do we? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Anyone on for public participation?
There is nobody.
Thank
There is
you.
nobody on.
All right, so we'll move to new business. A1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with FGB Construction Company for project DPW RNP 2020-1 Nathan Hale Middle School bathroom concession building foundation for a sum not to exceed $31,500. Account numbers noted. I think we're gonna move both at the same time. And 1B, authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to execute change orders on contract with FGB Construction Company for project DPW RNP 2020-1 Nathan Hill Middle School bathroom concession building foundation for some not to exceed $3,150. Account numbers noted. If someone move that,
I'll move it.
okay. Any discussion on that, or you want to talk about that, Nick?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. So this is for the foundation for the prefab building going into Nathan Hale. Previously, you already approved the prefab building, which was approximately, I think, 156. And this is for the foundation work. It was put out to bid. This is the low bid of 31.5 with a 10% concession for the 31.50. So this is for the foundation work alone, and the connections and the utility hookups will be done by park staff, which will save, I think we put that out as an ad alternate in the bid, and it was something like $28,000. So that work that staff's gonna do is saving the city money, and this is just to pour the foundation, and the prefab building will be installed on top of it.
Do we have an idea of how much we're actually saving? Does anyone? Okay.
I'm not sure if the timeline of putting out these bids sort of skewed the price. We originally had an estimate to do the prefab, the install and the foundation of approximately 30,000, and it was almost double during this time. So we didn't have the budget for it. Actually, one of the accounts noted there is an operating account which will come out of next year's fiscal budget. But the $28,000 we had originally appropriated for the project just wasn't enough. So we're using the second account to pay for it. But as far as cost savings, everything is skewed with what's going on right now. So I couldn't tell you the dollar savings with going this route.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor? Right? Opposed, abstentions? Great. Okay, number 2. Right. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Gilberto and Sons LLC project number 4018 chimney repair and reconstruction at Gallagher Mansion, Cranberry Park for a sum not to exceed $229,900. Count numbers noted. And 2B, authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to execute change orders on contract with Gilberto and Sons LLC project 4018 chimney repair and reconstruction of Gallagher Mansion, Cranberry Park for a sum not to exceed $22,990. Account number noted. Can someone move the item? Someone move it? I can't see.
Tom did.
Tom?
Yeah, I'll move it. Tom Keegan.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone speak to that?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'll speak to that. So this is, the roof at Gallagher was replaced a couple years ago. There was not enough money at the time to do the chimneys. So we did the roof, chimney work was never done, still had leaks in the building. So this was one of the projects that was funded last year. This is to do the final sealing of the roof and all the seams within the four fire flutes, the fire chimneys that's at the mansion. This did go out to bid, and this is the low bid. We had approximately $200,000 to cover the cost of the repairs as well as the soft costs. And we had to take money out of another operating account for the $29,000. Like I said, it was the low bid. It came in higher than what we expected. And again, I don't know if that has to do with the current conditions that we're under, but we are going to take it out so we can get that work done as quickly as possible.
Any questions? Brendan?
Yeah, I've got one. I mean, I think we've been doing this roof for the last 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Nick, is any of this, are we getting reimbursed at all from any grants for this? Because I know they're really active with grant funding.
No, and these were capital projects that were funded before I got on. So this was already in the works. None of this is reimbursable. I am going to meet with the folks over at Lockwood Matthews Mansion because they do a really good job of not only getting money to do repairs at their mansion, but also being reimbursed for it. So my intentions were to meet with Patsy over there and see what exactly and how they go around and trying to get additional funds to address the repairs at the mansion, especially being a historical building. Through the capital project, to the capital process, we are looking to get additional monies. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think it was almost $2 million because the windows have to be done. The lead casings around the window are all rusted, deteriorated. So there's seepage coming through the windows. The basement was never sealed. So there's water coming in through the stairs leading down to the basement. And that's also resulted in the bottom floor being completely buckled. It's a wooden floor on the bottom. So to seal the entire building, we were looking at almost $2 million that we went through the capital process last year. I believe we got $580,000 to do the windows. So with doing the ceiling, doing the roof a couple of years ago, doing the chimneys now, and having the funding to do the lead casings in the window next budget, we're getting there slowly but surely and trying to seal the envelope of the building. It makes no sense to do any restoration in the building until you can seal the envelope, because the guys have been literally painting the wall every time, monthly, if there's a wedding in there, because the water comes through the cracks and leaks all the way down to the first floor in the kitchen. So it's an issue that has to be resolved, has to be fixed. And we are going to work with Lockwood Matthews to see if there's any other funding sources that we can look into to address those items.
I know your department always makes requests in your budget and they don't always get funded. I mean, that's just always been the case. And you mentioned weddings. I mean, how much public access does this building have for weddings? I know that, they did the Halloween thing, but do they use the inside of the house or is it mostly outside? I know we use the restrooms.
It depends on the size of the wedding. Most people use the tent outside. We have a pavilion space here that we tent.
Right.
And the wedding season generally runs from about April through the first week in November. Most of the mansion is used for the brides and grooms quarters upstairs. But even in doing that, the bathrooms aren't functional upstairs in the mansion. So it's literally a changing room. And then we have some smaller weddings that they actually do have in the mansion, and then they have the reception outside. The mansion also doesn't have a large enough kitchen to really be a true wedding venue. But saying all of that, the setting of Cranberry where it is absolutely beautiful. I think we generate up to $180,000 alone just in weddings at the mansion. And weddings are booked out almost a year and a half in advance. We did a cost comparable when we looked at wedding venues, and that was one of the one of the recommendations we had this year, which was also already approved, to increase the rate for the mansion. I think it's definitely worth it. And I think if you invest the money in it, you will see the returns. We've also been talking to the Friends of Cranberry group to sort of come back and do other programs and activities at the mansion. Right now, it's purely a venue space for private events, but the public and the residents have never really seen or walked through it or know the history of it. So I've been working with them to try to come up with just, whether it's holiday programs, whether it's just tours of the mansion where they can speak to the history of it. I think we really need to do a better job of just promoting it within. Most people that use that asset aren't even from Norwalk. They come in, they use it as a wedding venue, and then they leave. But residents who live here don't really see the beauty or have the appreciation for it because they're never inside. So that's one of the things we're deliberately looking at, adding additional programs and events there so they can see and benefit from the resource in the community.
Yeah, my last point, just real quick, is you mentioned events. I'm looking at the agenda. I mean, it's probably the first time I've not seen an event on a Parks and Rec agenda. Is that because we're not taking event applications, or is just lack of interest?
No, we have held off on booking any new events.
Got it.
We've actually held off since around March, and that's because the governor executive orders limits the size of social gatherings. Those measures and those orders keep changing. When we started out in March, it started out at 250 and then went to 100, went to 50, 10, and 5. Now we're seeing it go back up in the other way. I did speak to Deanna, the health department director, this morning, asked her about events in August since we're loosening all the restrictions. She said to hold off for now until we get further guidelines from the state. But we've deliberately held off on doing any events because we've had to cancel so many, and we want to make sure that those groups and organizers have first shot at rescheduling before we added new events. So that's why you don't see anything, and you haven't seen anything for the last couple of meetings.
So someone couldn't book an event for, say, next year now.
No, we're holding off on everything just so we have, and we give the first right to the groups that are already booked enough time to reschedule.
That's good to
And
know.
we had a pretty good list I'm sorry. We had a pretty good list of activities, right?
Yes. There were 2 weddings a month from, I believe, May through October that was booked there. We've canceled all events, large and small. So from the large events with over 1,000 people to small events up to 100, we've canceled everything. Nice. And again, that was sort of done to meet the governor's executive order.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
No problem.
Any other questions? Okay. So all in favor? Opposed, abstentions? Good. Okay. Is that it? So Nick, you and I had a conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I have 2 discussion items that I want to touch on.
Right.
So I do want to bring 2 things to the committee's attention because they are parks related. One is a school graduation for Norwalk High as well as Brian McMahon that is scheduled down at the beach for August 3rd and August 4th. The BOE approved to have their graduations down at the beach on those 2 days. I think it's scheduled between 9 and 12. They're still working on the details, but to give you just a rough idea of what they have planned, I think the largest school, which is Norwalk High, has 376 graduates this year. What they're looking to do is have 1 vehicle per child, and they're going to use the parking lot at CAF with 3 LED screens set aside so they can have the event. Everything and everyone will be in their cars for the event. They're still working on logistics, and they're still working on details of the program. There was initial talk for it to be all self-contained, everyone in their vehicles, just do the event. You can listen to it on the radio, you can stream it on the social media platforms. But there was discussion this morning about giving the opportunity for the kids to walk across the stage. I don't know if that's going to be feasible under the restrictions that we currently have. So the school system is working with the health department and police department on the event itself. And then it is scheduled for the 3rd and 4th at the beach. So I wanted to make you guys aware of that. The mayor has signed off on closing the beach for those 2 days. It is in August, but it is on a Monday and Tuesday. And the time period is from 9 a.m. to 12. So we think it's going to have minimal impact because it's early in the week and early in the morning. But I wanted you to be aware of it because we're looking at potentially 400 cars between participants, staff, and those types of things. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Nick, quick question. You hear about anything as far as when you say, I think they have like tickets per car or whatever the case may be, but there's issues where there are 2 parents that are not together that need to get tickets or whatever the case may be as far as that. So what are they, did you hear them doing anything for that or?
So this event, I believe the Board of Ed is using a special event company to work out all those details. Like I said, when we initially had the phone call a couple of weeks ago, it was all thought to be self-contained, 1 vehicle, one vehicle per kid. But I've heard other things where they want the kids to walk. Again, when you look at the layout, 400 cars, it's almost like 20 rows. So if you're parked in the furthest row away, it's going to be extremely difficult to see the LED screens as well as for the kid to walk up, walk across, walk back without the social gathering guidelines, those types of restrictions that are out there. I don't have any of the program details. I honestly don't think they've been worked out yet. The date is just on the calendar. And again, I just wanted you to be aware of it, but I don't have those details, Kadeem.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Nick, can I ask
Yes.
you a quick question?
Yep.
Do they consider Vets Park? Just
They
because
did.
of the larger space and then that horseshoe way that the parking lot runs, I almost feel like it's going to give you better and more access for the cars to line up.
Yeah.
Because it kind of just, encompasses the park. That way they have that wide open area. There's a horseshoe that those cars can stream down.
They're not anticipating a drive-through ceremony. It's more so to be everyone's in one space within their vehicle. I think the health department guidelines was it has to be 6 feet apart, but it's not a drive-through event, and originally it was not a get out your car and walk across event. It was just they'll have a stage there. I think they were going to limit it to 2 or 3 speakers at most, and it was just going to be an hour program. The event organizer is working with the principal to figure out the best way to do it. One suggestion was to have the kids do videos and then send it in, and then they would produce one video with everyone walking across the stage. And I thought that's the way they were working. But as of this morning, I heard another option. Again, this is being done with the school board, the event organizer, with direction from the police department and the health department. So I think there's another conference call scheduled for next week, but I don't have the details of what was worked out because they were still trying to figure that out between the principals and the event organizer.
Okay.
Nick, I got a quick question while we're talking about the beach. I've been asked, can people park at Marvin School still and walk to the beach?
Yes, residents only.
Resident, do they need to, do they check that they're registered, vehicles registered in Norwalk? And
Correct. They'll have to go on to our website, verify that their car is on the grand list. They'll have to print out the pass. That's the only place where they have to print out the pass and display it on their dashboard because that lot isn't patrolled by LAS, it's patrolled by the police department. So the police actually check that lot, and the only way they can do it, because they don't have access to the same LAS system, is to look for the passes. So if people aren't going to park there, they have to print out the pass, they have to verify it, and they'll be good to go.
yeah, that was the catch. Because I remember in the past, you couldn't park at Marvin to walk to the beach in years past, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
One more issue in regards to the beach. Yesterday was the first day that we met capacity for non-residents. So in the first phase of the reopening plan, we are only allowing 50 vehicles per day. Yesterday was the first day, I think it was like 85 degrees. So we did meet capacity yesterday around 3 o'clock, and we did shut it down and have to turn non-residents away. But the good news is the main lot at CAF, even at 50% capacity, had tons of spaces open. So the system that we have in place is working well. We've had good support and enforcement from the police department, and everything is going well down there.
Good. Any other
I do
question?
want-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if there's any questions in regards to the graduation or the beach, I do have some updates in regards to some changes and recommendations we'll be making for phase 2 of the reopening plan. If there's any questions to either one of those, let me know. If not, then I'll move on to the next item. Nope. Okay, so on June 6th, we received additional guidelines from the state in regards to youth sports. That's been a pretty big topic. We've got a lot of feedback from the youth organizations in regards to getting back on the field, and rightfully so. The kids have been cooped up for 3 months, and the state finally provided us some guidelines. So we are going to look to allow youth sports organizations to get back to practicing. It's only going to be at 50% capacity. One of the state's guidelines is if you have a facility with 4 fields, you can only allow play and practice on 2 of those 4 at a time. And there's some additional guidelines. So what we're going to do is have a Zoom meeting with all of the youth organizations that are scheduled or were scheduled to play and practice in June and July. They're going to have that Zoom meeting on Monday, let them know what the guidelines are for the state. And if they are interested in bringing their teams back, they'll have to submit a reopening plan outlining how they plan to meet the guidelines of the state. So we're going to have that call on Monday. And then each organization will have to submit their reopening plan. And we hope to get back to allowing youth practices probably around June 29th or July 6th at the latest. So that's one of the updates you'll see in the reopening plan. The reopening plan, we are going to have to revise because of the state's guidelines, just so we're on the same timeline. So I think the mayor's office is going to push something out either Friday or Monday with new updates. Additional items we'll be looking to do. We're going to expand the parking capacity at the beach. Right now we're at 50%. We're going to expand it to 75% in anticipation of July 4th. We are still trying to figure out whether or not we're going to leave the limit for non-residents at 50 cars or whether we're going to move it up to 75, but it won't be more than 75. My rationale or suggestion for doing that is July 4th weekend is coming. It's usually the second busiest weekend that we have. And people are still going to come to the beach regardless. So rather than fight or rather than restrict it too much to where people are illegally parking or dropping off or trying to get around the system, we might as well open it up a little bit. So at least that way we have better oversight management of it. So that's one of the recommendations I'm making, is to go to 75% capacity in the main lots and no more than 75 non-resident vehicles per day at Taylor Farm. We are also looking to open the bathrooms. During the first phase, we had them locked because of paper products and cleaning supplies. We think we have enough in stock to be able to open the bathrooms. So the bathrooms will be open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 7 days a week. And we're also going to now allow people to fish, to swim, and to clam. So with people getting in the water, we realize they need the showers, we realize they need changing rooms, we realize they need bathrooms, and that's why you'll see the bathrooms open up in phase 2 as well. The boating ramps, we're going to extend the hours there as well. We talked about youth sports, summer camps. Summer camps does not look likely this year. The school system is still trying to figure out whether or not they're going to do in-person summer school. And we've been waiting on them because they're going to dictate how much space we had. And then the guidelines from the state were also pretty strict. So the cost to implement the measures that the state wanted and having to wait for the school, it's just too late in the game to make that decision. Right now, we're 3 weeks away from July 4th weekend, and we're more than likely going to have an announcement this week that we're not going to do summer camps. But with that, we are going to do online activities. We've also canceled our concerts. but we are going to try to do some virtual concerts and stream them at the same time. They will be done at an undisclosed location, so we don't have crowds gathering around them. But at least we're trying to offer the public some kind of normalcy of what they're used to. So the kids will have their online activities and programs. Adults, we are going to stream 3 concerts to begin with to see how it works. And we are going to do some programming in the outdoors. So like our Learn to Swim program that we typically do down at the beach, because of the environment there, because of the water, the tidal changes, it's a minimal risk for infection. We are going to move ahead with Learn to Swim at the beach. Plus there's some programming partners of ours like Grassroots Tennis that are going to run their athletic portion of their camps. So you'll see more activities being offered through phase 2. They may not all start on the 17th, but they'll start somewhere in that phase. And the last thing is we'll also have the courts reopening. So the tennis and the volleyball courts will be reopened at 50% capacity. If there's 2 courts, we'll only put the net up on 1. So that way we're reducing the capacity. And we have to open up the courts at the schools as well, because you may have some of the tennis programs that want to get back into playing. So we decided to open the tennis courts and volleyball courts in phase 2 as well. So we're as the virus tends to trend downward, we're starting to loosen the restrictions now, and then we should be in a better position as far as recreational programs and activities.
Excuse me, Nick.
Yes, sir.
So with the tennis courts and basketball courts opening, does that mean we're going to start opening the playgrounds yet, or is that
No.
still, okay,
There's
so,
still some amenities, and again, playgrounds are a little bit different because they're much higher touch points on a playground. So we're still going to hold off on that. But tennis courts, I believe that was one of the governor's recommendations to open, I think, the first phase. We held off because, again, part of doing that is making sure that you have the enforcement and oversight to make sure that people are playing with the guidelines, right? We didn't have the staff to do that, so we held off until the second phase, and now we're starting to implement and open up some of those items. But the bathrooms at Vets Park, the bathrooms at the beach will be open daily. At Cranberry, we're going to hold off. All of the playgrounds, we're going to hold off. But the courts, we're going to move ahead. The fields, we're going to move ahead. Those types of things.
how about the splash pad at the beach?
No, the beach we're treating a little bit different because we realize that the beach is the most used site in our system, and we still want to work on reducing the capacity there. We didn't want to go to 75% and add more non-residents and then open all the amenities because everyone would start to flood in. So what we're doing is opening it up for residents, but we're still closing some of the amenities. They can go fish, they can go swim, they can go clam, they can change in the bathrooms and everything else, but the skate park, the volleyball courts, the splash pad will still be closed. That'll come in phase 3.
So Nick, that's 100%. With those open, that's 100%, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, the entire reopening plan version 2 should be out either Friday or Monday of next week.
Nick, so
Yes.
when you were talking about the youth sports and they have to present a plan, who's going to oversee that? And then what liability, like, are we opening ourselves up to any sort of liability with that process?
So as part of the reopening package, again, these clubs will have to abide by the state guidelines that will have to be outlined in their program proposals for reopening. But also as part of that package, the city will have a waiver where the organizations will have to sign off on the liability. And we are also recommending that the clubs use a waiver form for their participants as well. So that way they are indemnified as well as the city from liability. Parents should be well aware of the risk of signing up their kids for the program ahead of time. Again, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but like you're saying, it's to protect the city and to protect the organizations. And that is standard practice. We actually have a template that Stanford is using as well as the rest of the samples from Connecticut Recreation and Park Association. So it's not uncommon to include a waiver or a liability form before the organizations and the participants get back on the field.
And what's the cleaning? Because we've got to wipe down everything. Like, so what does that look like? And do we need to hire more people? How is that working?
Yeah, so it's a little bit less stringent because it's an outside facility. But we're gonna, I think we have to sort of put that on the clubs themselves. I mean, they're the ones that are out there. They're the ones that have the teams and the parents showing up. That should be part of their responsibility as well in maintaining those spaces. And I'm talking specifically about the bleachers, right? So the bleachers are where parents are going to sit, congregate, watch their kids. Again, we would encourage parents to stay in their cars if the fields are close enough so they don't have those gathering areas. But like even in the dugouts, we're going to expect coaches and organizations to clean the dugouts. We're going to recommend that they don't have the kids share equipment, whether it's helmets, whether it's bats, even balls. We're asking them to sanitize them after each. I think in the Little League package, they're recommending the balls be swapped out every 2 innings. So there's all those guidelines that these parent organizations like Little League and like lacrosse, the larger organizations have provided guidelines. And there's also guidelines that the states provided that they have to meet. But it'll be on the club to do a lot of the enforcement of it. We're also going to supplement it with staff going out and verifying that everyone's complying, because like I'll give you an example. So one of the requirements is, like I mentioned, you can't have more than 50% of your fields going at the same time, but also you're not allowed to have more than 50 people at a game. And that includes both teams. So players on both teams, as well as parents from that team, you can't exceed 50 people in attendance. So that's why I said I wanted to get in touch with all of the organizations, let them know what the requirements are going to be ahead of time if they choose to come back. And we are going to enforce it, not only us, but the health department will go around and enforce it as well. So I want to make that clear, and that's why we're having a meeting on Monday. And then interested organizations that want to come back will have to sign the waiver, and they will have to take those steps as far as cleaning, whether it's the bleachers or the equipment and those types of things.
What time is that meeting on Monday?
I think we're setting up a Zoom call. I think we're trying to do it 2:00 on Monday. Would you like an invite as part of that as well?
Yes. Just thinking
Okay.
if I can make it. Yeah, send it to all of us. Yeah.
Okay,
Send me that.
Okay.
will do.
I'll take
All
it.
right. All right.
Yep, so that's it. I just wanted to give you an update on both of those things, the graduation as well as the updates for the reopening plan.
Great.
And that's all I had.
Any questions? Good, a lot of stuff going on. All right. We're gonna make a motion. Did you make a motion, Manny? Second by Tom. All in favor? We're done, Kadeem.
One of the quickest parks meetings we've ever had, Dar.
And
It's Nick. It's Nick.
It's only for now. When the events get back,
It's gonna be
long.
crazy. It's
Yeah,
gonna
these
be
are fun.
mayhem. I know.
These ones are fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Delene.
One weekend.
Hi, Darlene. How are ya?
I'm good. How are you? John
Good.
must be sunbathing after he ate in front of us, right? He's now
I
got
think he had his camera on.
right?
We gotta watch
Backyard. Yeah, see? Where are you? With your man cave?
I'm taking a bubble bath.
I know.
Anthony, you may want to cut off the recording.
John, you're live on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube now, forever.
All right.
Oh, I'm out.
All right. Bye, guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you for
Bye.
having me.
Everyone.
Bye.
Appreciate the thorough. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. Yes.
I lost my train of thought.
I know.
I was like, thanks. Oh my gosh, I had like my one line and I just messed it up.
You messed it up.
Right.
You can text it to us.
I will. Yeah.
Bye,
guys.
guys.
Next meeting.
Bye.
All right, Manny.
Bye.
Good night.